Indianapolis definitely understands that a rising tide lifts all boats. My work ethic really comes from my parents. If you were doing a small thing around the house, you did it until that job was complete. And I've taken that into every job I've ever had. That's something else I tell a lot of young people when they ask about sort of how this happened. A lot of my jobs have been because somebody was watching what I was doing when I didn't know. People are always watching, and I'm always watching too. When we have an opportunity here, if I've interacted with someone maybe in another organization or another department, I want the best people on my team, and so you're always looking for that talent. The other thing that served me well is when there was an opportunity, especially early in my career, to step up and take on another project, and I didn't do it for more pay or for a better title, but for the experience itself, I always said yes. And that really, I think, helped me stand out among some of my peers at a young age, and it's something I encourage people to do today. My day-to-day role now is president and COO of Pacer Sports and Entertainment, and that runs a gamut from construction all the way to HR and IT. And we have 3 buildings, really a campus now, and we're building a new Bicentennial Unity Plaza that will be opening in the spring. So I'm over all of that, communications and community engagement as well. And all of those things cross our gaming team, our G League team, our Fever team. We're one of the few partners in the NBA that has an NBA, WNBA, G League, Pacers gaming, and we run our building. I'm also running the 2024 NBA All-Star Host Committee. So that's keeping me busy too. As our construction's starting to wrap up, that's certainly starting to pick up, and we're really excited about that opportunity to host. Every day is completely different. When I walked in here, I was on a call about a concrete rationing, and then I'll go into a food tasting, and I've got meetings on some of our HR priorities this afternoon. So it's really, every day is pretty unique. So when I was working, my very first big event was the 1996 Republican Convention in San Diego, and I was working on the platform committee, and that ends the week before the convention starts, and I was asked if I wanted to answer the phones in the CEO's office for the week of the convention. And I said, absolutely, that sounds like a lot of fun. Well, what that meant was getting to work at 3:45 in the morning, because we were doing East Coast press every day, and staying until about midnight for 5 days in a row, running and getting food, often getting yelled at, trying to fix problems. But what that ended up being for me was an opportunity to shine in front of a lot of senior leaders who went on to then run the RNC, the next RNC chairman, and wound up in my next position at the RNC. It also landed me on the podium during the acceptance speech by Senator Dole, and ended up getting my picture in Time magazine with Sam Donaldson. I could have said no to that opportunity and just hung out that week and had a good time, but by saying yes, it really did launch my career in politics. My political background, I think, really gave me a solid foundation when I ended up here, and I never imagined I would end up working for an NBA team and overseeing the facilities, but politics and sports are really similar. I work now for a small family business. It's not that different from working for an elected official. You very much interact with their family and work with their entire family. We do that here with Herb Simon and the Simon family. And it's managing people, projects, and budgets in both arenas on tight deadlines in an ever-changing environment. The first time you walk on the West Wing, your knees are shaking a little bit, but you get it as you go. Now when I'm briefing ownership or a CEO or working with the mayor or the governor, those things have really served me well. In 2009, when President Obama won, he very gracefully asked all of us in the Bush administration to leave our jobs. I was doing some political consulting in DC, but I really wasn't passionate about it. I grew up in Indiana and knew that Indy had won the Super Bowl bid for 2012. And so I went online and I applied with 150 other people for the VP of Event Operations position, and got called for a phone interview, and then flown out and ended up getting the job. And it was a great introduction to Indianapolis. I'd never professionally worked in Indianapolis, and everyone was involved in that event. So I got to know the mayor and the governor and all the main corporate sponsors here, and the CEO of the Pacers, Rick Fuson, and a lot of other people, including the member of Congress I went on to work for. It just helped me reconnect instantly back into Indianapolis, and then was an incredibly successful event. I mean, I will never work on another event that was as successful as that Super Bowl. Through Rick Fuson, ended up getting this opportunity. In politics, we don't have revenue, and we're not really always designing, although we do have donors. So there were more parallels than I imagined there would be. The other thing that politics really gave me was a sense of presence. If you have to go and brief the vice president a couple of times a day, you better walk in and you better know your stuff, and you better have a really good presence when you're presenting it. And I love the construction piece, which surprises me. My background in construction was a $30,000 kitchen renovation once. I like HGTV like everybody else, and at the beginning of the hour, the project is a mess, and at the end, it's done. And this has been 3 to 4 years of that. I think some of the intangibles here at Pacer Sports Entertainment really come from Herb Simon. He's the longest standing owner in the NBA and just an incredibly generous human being. He often says that Indianapolis has given him and his family more than he could ever give Indianapolis. And so that really is in our spirit, it's in our bones here, and it's how we treat the community. The building is a community asset that we have the privilege of operating on behalf of the city. Our ownership really feels that we should maximize that every day that we can. But I love the construction piece, and I loved the collaboration between the departments to really design what we wanted this to be. It helped me understand the company better and a lot of our revenue areas better, to partner with corporate sponsorship and ticket sales to understand the kind of products that they thought would sell well. One of the best parts about the renovation, I think, for our core team here, that in a leadership management position, was we really had to lock ourselves in a room for the better part of a year on a regular basis to design exactly what we wanted this renovation to be. Whether that was redesigning the suites completely, adding new clubs, moving things operationally around the building, all that had to work together. And so we were doing a lot of that in 2019. There were about 12 to 15 people in that room on a regular basis. And then we started the construction project in early 2020. And as things then COVID hit and we had to sort of navigate a roller coaster of challenges, we had to redesign some things. Then that fall of 2020, as we were coming out of COVID and getting the protocols from the NBA on how we could manage events, and we had probably more events in Indianapolis in the 2020-2021 season than most cities. We actually had a concert. We hosted 16 March Madness games. We had a lot going on. That same core group of people from the design team pulled the COVID protocols together and kind of led the company back out of COVID. And so I think we understand on the facility side that we're not going to fill the building ourselves, that our partners there have to have a great building, it has to function well, have a great guest experience in order to sell the products, and that's what keeps us all in business. And that same collaboration then got us through COVID. And I was really proud to see that same group of people stepped up. I'm incredibly proud of the people who sat in that room with us, and a lot of them were women, which I also loved. I also love the communications challenges in a time in which there's not as much earned media or reporters in town, so we have to tell our own story. Our community engagement, we've really gotten very strategic in what we're trying to do here in Indianapolis and in Indiana as a whole. When I'm tackling one of these in the very beginning, it certainly can be a little bit overwhelming. It seems like making sausage, but there's a process to breaking down the big pieces, getting the right people in the room. I'm usually not the smartest person in any room, but I can facilitate a meeting and get the right people together to get to the right answers. These events are really successful because they're collaborative, keep to a timeline. I work backwards on almost everything. So when I first started on the Super Bowl host committee, I got in charge, I called it the New Girl Project. So they had come up with an idea that was called Super Scarves, and they wanted to get 8,000 scarves knitted from people in Indiana for the volunteers. And that was a way for people to be involved in an event who maybe wouldn't otherwise be involved in the Super Bowl. So I was told on my first day, I need to get 8,000 scarves. I don't knit, and I don't know anything about knitting. And so I went back to my desk and I said, well, by February 5th, 2012, I need something like 8 scarves a day to be knitted every day. So let me figure out how to do that and get the right people in the room. Indianapolis definitely understands that a rising tide lifts all boats. While we could be hyper competitive, it's not in anyone's best interest. And so we've always done better when we collaborate. When we host the 2024 NBA All-Star Game, we'll have events at Lucas Oil Stadium, and we'll have events here. I'm sure there will also be events out at the track. When we delivered the bid in 2017 to the league, Larry Bird drove a custom-wrapped Indy car down Fifth Avenue to deliver the bid to Adam Silver. And that was a big part of what we wanted them to know is we're one city here together. The State House is 5 blocks away. The governor is in the building all the time, and so is the mayor. And it's important, I think they understand the importance of our sports teams to the growth of Indianapolis, to recruiting talent and the bigger companies, to have companies continue to relocate here and grow. What I would hope when people see my success, whatever success I've had, is that it's achievable for anybody. If you put your head down and you work hard, you can really achieve whatever you want to achieve. And so I do hope that the women in the company here, the women maybe coming at the conference, I hope they see that as something that if they want to do it, that they can absolutely do it. It's not easy to do, but it's something that's absolutely achievable.